How's it going, CT fam? It's your man CJ Williams checking in with Culturalist Theory, and today we're finally diving into the album catalog of the one and only Ghostface Killah. Mixtapes, other compilations, and collabs are off the table, just projects officially tagged as albums, giving us a hot baker's dozen to go over today, alright? Now be sure to satisfy the algorithm by doing the customary liking, sharing, following, and subscribing if you haven't already. And did somebody say Wu-Tang Raised Me merch is now available? Yep, hit the link below to help keep these darts flying in your direction. Now that the stage is set, let's do what we came here to do. Number 13, Ghostface Killah as Ghostini, Wizard of Poetry in Emerald City. You had to see this one coming from a mile away, right? The R&B/hip-hop album that absolutely nobody asked for is predictably holding up the bottom of the barrel on our list. We knew of the faceless man's love of classic soul many moons before this arrived, but it's the unevenness that simply does it in. Merging hip-hop with R&B is as common as mixing Bacardi and Cristal together, or whatever Nelly said. Yet, this concoction doesn't fully satisfy our taste for either one. Track number 1, Not Your Average Girl, Forever, and I'll Be That count as the biggest stumbling blocks on this yellow brick road. The bonus track, She's a Killer, should be auto-tuned out immediately, and previously released Back Like That remix with Kanye and Neo blatantly pads the track listing. However, this road to Emerald City is completely shot with potholes, as Stay, Paragraphs of Love with American Boy Lover Estelle, and Let's Stop Playing featuring John Legend all get the Radio Raheem gives a double helping of assist on Do Over and the single Baby, crooning that the love child that they'd bring into the world would have a swag and Diddy Bop that matches their own. Never quite figured out what a Diddy Bop is, but while we're on the subject of Diddy, when dubbing yourself the mastermind from behind as GFK does on Stapleton Sex, that's a sure way to pique the curiosity of various aunties, hood rats, and fellow NYC record execs alike. But we'd probably be telling very different tales if the latter had gotten bold enough to even suggest that he show improve on that moniker.
Because P. Diddy be wanting the body, and you gotta tell him no.
Starks got so out of pocket on that joint, the clean version of the album protected the listener's integrity by blocking it outright. Not that you would have listened to that one anyway, but hey, facts is facts, fam. And don't touch what he claims is his, because his gutter switch ain't hard to find on Guest House, taking a Mr. Biggs role in contrast to Fabulous's duties as R. Kelly. The plot? The cable man providing legit cable services to the main house before acting out a real-life Skinamax XXX scene in the guest house, with Mr. Biggs catching the action right in the middle. Not much else here of interest, but lo and behold, we did receive an indirect part 2 of sorts to Emerald City in 2024, so keep watching for more on that. Number 12, the Pretty Tony album. The first of 3 official Wu-Tang solos that dropped in 2004 was easily the worst. Tony Stark's debut record on the Def Jam label was the only one without Killah as part of his main stage moniker, axed his right-hand man Raekwon, and led off with a single so obviously shooting for commercial spins, it still makes our heads hurt to this day. We're looking at you, Tush Tush Tush. While Ghost and Missy are some of the most creative artists of our generation, sharing the same track together is akin to mixing Funyuns and Ranch Doritos, aka a funky-ass combo. The other attempt at a duet with a female rapper, Tooken Back with Jackie O, is marginally better, albeit the Tush bar was a pretty low one to clear. Knott's choice to have the constant chant Take Me Back in that chipmunk high-pitched tone proves to be thoroughly annoying though. Weak production on the album Closing Love with Music Soul Child kills what is otherwise a lyrically heartfelt joint. 3 hard niggas from Yonkers make worthwhile contributions on Metal Lungies and Run, whereas the old school flavor within Save Me Dear, Holla, and It's Over hold up decently well. The album sold more and charted higher than its predecessor, but for Def Jam to be behind it and it not even go gold says a lot. Shit, his first 2 albums alone outsold his 7 albums done with the famed label. Consumer habits of consuming music in an iPod digital download world be damned. We're keenly aware that this album has its defenders and will scream to the heavens that it should be in the top 5. And for you people, yes, you people, we look forward to reading your comments, dismissing our take on it. Number 11, Ghostface Killahs. If any of y'all culturalists out there have come across another album where the artist simply added an S to the end of their stage name and then made that the project's title, drop a comment about it below. However, this is the only one that comes to mind, and speaking of albums, GFK's truly blurs the line of that title, fam. Running at an EP's length of 33 minutes across an intro, 2 skits, and 11 tracks that never passed the 4-minute mark, this could have easily just been lumped into his mixtape catalog. And who knows, if enough heads give the thumbs up and demand for a dissection of those bodies of work, we might just pull that one off too. If you dare stand under trees, risk getting hit by lightning in under 2 minutes from his flows on Conditioning, or be a bit less risky by taking in a micro shot of social commentary on New World with a hook singer that gives off imitation Robin Thicke vibes. We did a dope ass video on his catalog too, so remember to check that out after watching this. Pac and Snoop will forever have gangsta parties on wax immortalized with their 96 collaboration, but we can also enjoy Party Over Here and the early 90s aesthetic on The Chase. The scratches on Chase and Burner to Burner will certainly have you wanting to go back to some of your other favorite Wu-Tang albums of old. That sentiment rings far truer when it comes to Waffles and Ice Cream though, as this half-ass attempt to be a sequel to the 95 classic from Cuban Links is flat out whack, and of course, the chef is out to lunch. Capadonna drops duds on the opening track, Me, Denny, and Daryl, and Jamel Irif couldn't save the book-ending soursop amongst its island-flavored aspirations. Overall, the good parts of Ghostface Killahs warrant spots in your best of GFK playlist, but only towards the bottom half. The better news is we've got 10 more albums that'll serve that list far better.
Yo, what's good, people? It's your man, CJ Williams.
I'm QB.
Yo, we just want to say thank you for tapping into the channel. If you're commenting, if you're liking it, you ain't even got to comment or like. If you're just tapping in and watching, we appreciate you.
You know what? Actually, share this video, and if you're not in the Patreon, make sure you tap into Patreon where you can get access to the Discord, chat it up with some like-minded people, and we got merch.
Yeah, merch. We got bonus content as well. So make sure you tap in, man. If you like the list, you like the countdowns, there's more where that came from. Hit the link in the description. Support the channel. We're trying to do big things, so we appreciate it.
We're on our way to big things, man. We'll see you in the next one.
Number 10, Bulletproof Wallets. Something happened between Supreme Clientele and Fishscale. Whatever it was left us with 2 consecutive projects that were less than impressive, and 2001's Bulletproof Wallets was the first. Sure, Raekwon is front and center on the album cover, but this is equally as much an introduction to GFK's Theodore unit as well, which is part of the problem. Furthermore, simply being a product of its era means that most of the content here only enjoyed a brief shelf life, such as Ghost Showers, Flowers alongside Mr. Meth, and Theodore, which features, you guessed it, Theodore unit. Ever wonder why you never heard of any of them dropping solo projects? The single for the masses, Never Be the Same Again, featuring Carl Thomas, and the lackluster Love Session starring Rough Ends, and their low-budget attempt of a Case and Joe emulation got us pulling up faded pictures post-haste to resuscitate our eardrum. Suffice it to say, that pair of songs sowed seeds for what eventually sprouted the Wizard of Poetry experiment that arrived near the close of the noughties. Those who recall the late Coolio's Ghetto cartoon will immediately pick up on the concept of the forest, while the soulful sounds of Bobby Womack and Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes work wonders on Walking Through the Darkness and the Too Short but hilariously sweet Teddy skit respectively. And more joints like the Hilton were seriously needed to protect this body of work from self-inflicted hollow points of mediocrity. We can only conclude that Bulletproof Wallets dropping roughly 30 days prior to the Clan's 4th group album, Iron Flag, is how it managed to secure the runner-up spot on the hip-hop and R&B charts at the time. But let us be clear, this is not top-tier Tony by any means, giving us 0 reasons to leave this wallet and El Segundo circa 2001 without a care. Number 9, More Fish. If the saying,
"But wait, there's more,"
was an album, then More Fish would be the poster child repping it the hardest. Like a few other big names in the game before him, Tony Stark's Enterprises was next on the list to deliver 2 full albums within the same calendar year. Contrary to what Shalimar famously built out in the 70s, True Love is not necessarily found the second time around here. The good shit here is quite exceptional, yet the bullshit that slid through tells us that label execs just wanted Ghost to strike while his name was still buzzing in the streets off the strength of his earlier output. Things ignite with a blast of nitro on the aptly titled Ghost is Back, as he perfectly flows over the classic Know the Ledge beat courtesy of the legendary Eric B. and Rakim. He rocks hard with his offspring Sun God on Street Opera amidst its soulful backdrop, and we get nice doses of humor alongside Reggie Noble on Greedy Bitches. Then we find ourselves on the Ghetto Soap Opera Network with Grew Up, Josephine, and Alex. If your ears had yet to take in her insta-hit Rehab, then Ghostini provided your first hit of some Amy Winehouse on You Know I'm No Good. However, the placeholders that help boost the track listing up to 17 really take away from this dish of
fish, short salads and make rap ballads.
That includes Miguel Sanchez, Black Rock, Guns N' Razors, and Good, which is less Michael Jackson bad and more Vanilla Ice terrible. And he was kind of pushing it with another mix of Back Like That, but tossing in new verses from Starks and vintage era Kanye allow us to give it the green light. With the next album on our list today releasing a solid 357 days after this one, More Fish completed a respectable tour of duty as a holdover album for Wu Fiends through an unusually long drought, save for whatever mixtapes you were able to cop. Number 8, the Big Doe Rehab. December of 2007 was the only time where the Wu-Tang faithful received new material. To your right, you had the Clan album 8 Diagrams that arrived on the 11th, and to the left was the Big Doe Rehab that was initiated a week prior on the 4th. Unfortunately, the latter mirrored the date that country rap tunes legend Chad Butler, better known to the world as Pimp C, took his last breath. Rest in peace. If you've been rocking with us for more than a minute, then you've already figured out which side we put our cream on. And knowing that Amy's dad nor Mr. Hathaway could motivate her to go seek some help, we're pretty certain any offers of Big Doe from Ghost would have received the exact same no. She gave all others who tried to save her. Fortunately, there was plenty in this high-dollar facility to keep fans rocking into 08 and beyond. That includes the potently visual Yolanda's House with Meth, Rec Room Therapy with You God, and Slow Down featuring Chrisette Michele, with the former two including Ray. Super GFK, Killer Lipstick with Johnny Blaze and Ireef, and We Celebrate alongside your favorite DJ Kid Capri serve a proper dose of familiar samples for fan enjoyment. And if you ever pondered the inner thoughts of an armed robber who's about to make their next shakedown, then Yap City is exactly what you've been waiting for. All the pertinent figures relating to Big Doe were indeed bigger than More Fish, and nearly 20 years removed from its debut, it still deserves to be pulled out of the archives and enjoyed every now and then. Number 7, Set the Tone, Guns N' Roses. Turns out the first drop of the 2020s from Starks Enterprises is literally setting the tone for Supreme Clientele 2, per an unmistakable hint tossed out near the project's conclusion. But let's not go for the two in the bush while we've got one in our hand, because Def Jam thought they were getting it 15 years ago. Guns N' Roses is simply put a dope-ass album from a 90s rapper for everyone who grew up on 90s hip-hop. The far overdue reconnection with Nas has been made right on Scar Tissue, the Iron Lungs barbs on Pair of Hammers are razor sharp, and the pre-808s and Heartbreaks Kanye was relocated on No Face. A $10,000 reward goes out to anyone who can lock that version of Ye in a studio and force him to produce good music again. There are portions of Guns N' Roses that brandish heavy feels on his Emerald City outing over 15 years prior. Fortunately for us, most of the execution here yields a bit more sweeter fruit. Mario's breakout hit, Let Me Love You, got transformed into You Should Let Me, go look it up for yourself. October London's smooth vocals contrast perfectly to the pointed lyrics from Ghost and Chef Raekwon on Skate Odyssey, aka All the Way, and Locked In featuring AZ runs on the same sample the Queen of Hip Hop Soul used for Be Happy, so you already know it's a winner. Bad Bitch featuring Ja Rule is begging for Ashanti's presence, but you'll have to wait till the very last song, Yup, to hear any recognizable female vocals, courtesy of Remy Ma. Her Terror Squad counterpart, Cook Coke Crack, can be located on Cape Fear, and 6 Minutes brings back former collaborators Sheek Louch and Jim Jones to pay homage to Dougie Fresh and Big Papa over a banger with high replay value. But with roses comes thorns, and in this context, those include the auto-tune travesty Trap Phone, Kilo in the Safe, and Champion Sound. Also, Shots with Busta Bus counts as another ill-conceived attempt at capturing reggae sounds. Just stick with the soul-based samples, as those historically work much more in your favor, G. Well into his 50s now, the man with no face still spits with the venom and clarity that he did as a young thug, giving us high hopes for the successor to this LP. Number 6, 36 Seasons. A one-and-done effort released by them boys named Tommy, the second official solo album of the 2010s from Tony Starks draws parallels from the cult classic Carlito's Way. No Wu-Tang members are cast in this session, but if you're a fan of Kool G Rap and AZ, well, they make multiple appearances throughout, all in good faith. However, kickoff track The Battlefield is the only time the trio share the same song. Making a return to the outside after a 9-year bid, Male delusionality never sounded crazier than it does on Love Don't Live Here No More featuring Candace Springs, because for some strange reason, he thought that Bamboo was just idly waiting for his uncertain return into her life. Blood in the Streets, Dogs of War, and Homicide find him back in the same type situations that put him behind the iron poles for nearly a decade to begin with. You don't have to be a comic book nerd to enjoy the highly conceptual Emergency Procedure with Pharoah Monch, but this, the immediately following Double Cross and Pieces to the Puzzle, will make that much more sense if played in sequence, like taking in tales of your favorite superheroes from page 1 to 32. And Starks can be summoned just like a famed Caped Crusader as displayed on Call My Name, who can grace your presence faster than the song itself ends whenever you need them. Spring shows up one more time for a midpoint interlude, and a soulful instrumental sends off New York's top contender. Did he meet a similar fate by the hands of a Benny Blanco from the Bronx Type Kid, sending him to Fernandez's funeral home? Take the 40-minute journey into 36 seasons to find out for yourself. You won't be disappointed.
Remember those albums that changed everything? The ones you played on repeat? The soundtracks of your story. Now, they're not just memories, they're wearable. 8 classic albums pressed into every hoodie and tee. For the ones who grew up on that real hip-hop, and the ones who are still catching up, this is more than merch, it's a tribute. Wear what raised you. Available now at shop.culturalisttheory.com.
Number 5, Apollo Kids. If counting the collaborative project that Meth, Ray, and Ghost dropped first quarter 2010, the Tidy and Tasty Woo Massacre, then the Christmas time release Apollo Kids makes for 7 total records dropped on Def Jam. Thankfully, the kids from this album share nothing with the lead single from Supreme Clientele of the same name. On this contract fulfillment project, the almighty DJ was hoping for the sequel to the latter, but instead, Ghost ended up transforming a mixtape he was working on into this 40-minute LP that's up for discussion. Production across the board is Kid's main strength, and in all honesty, we wouldn't have been mad if some of the tracks here were instrumentals only. Case in point, next to last track, Ghetto, which takes us back to the Ironman era with a dash of You God over an obscure sample from Woman of the Ghetto by Marlena Shaw. Cole's love for classic soul and ushering us into the If You Know, You Know club is long appreciated. Or how's about Drama for something more aggressive with Joel Ortiz and Game popping big shit over the same Is There Any Love track that Kid Cudi utilized a year prior, courtesy of an album called Don't Cry Little Tree circa 1970. The nostalgia train tracks forward on In the Park with T. Trotter, aka Black Thought, and the Dragon crosses with The Ghost on Superstar, either track worthy of being a single. Alas, the proverbial ball was dropped again with the label only pushing out Together Baby to the mainstream. Purified Thoughts with Killer Priest and GZA is solid, though the Liquid Swordsman certainly left us hanging, not even dropping a full 16 bars here. Street Bullies is interesting as it features his Seed Sun God and a verse from Sheek Louch that birthed their joint album Woo Block in 2012. But quite frankly, the only absolute skip here is Handcuffing Them Hoes with Jim Jones because, well, we all know how great of a lyricist he is. It's sad that Def Jam did nothing to truly push GFK up even further than he was before, but at least he left him on a high note where it counts most, and that's in these streets. Number 4, Supreme Clientele 2. Well, after a quarter of a century in between time, Ghost had finally dropped the sequel to what everyone's been clamoring. However, we're not even going to make you wait 25 seconds to tell you that we feel like another mixtape in the works was given the Supreme Clientele title to garner hype around it. Because let's face it, when's the last time he had this kind of anticipation? Complete with random shoutouts at the beginning of tracks hollering new Ghostface, a la DJ Clue on his tapes from the early 2000s, 2025 Supreme Clientele 2 feels more like an enhanced version of 36 Seasons than a continuation of its predecessor. We're salty on the facts of there being 0 RZA productions, not a single song lasts over 4 minutes and some seconds, 5 of the 22 tracks are useless skits, which includes Redman being delegated to spoken intro duty only. Being hot off the heels of releasing his own long-awaited sequel to Muddy Waters circa Christmas 2024, that is inexcusable. Nas giving us a less than impressive showing on Love Anymore has us ready to cash in on Tone's claim of a verse swap on Curtis May with Styles P and Conway the Machine, which keeps tradition of dope songs with titles that have nothing to do with the subject matter or production. Hey, at least we don't have to bear any bars from Capadonna. And fear not, if you've become deficient in Stark's slanguistics over the years, as Ghost and his NYC homies are very straightforward with their lyricism on Clientele too. Looking for the soul-bearing or soul-crooning joints that give his albums balance? You My Friend with Method Man and Georgie Porgy fit those bills quite well. Jizza finds his way back to the booth and Raekwon makes his lone cameo on the solid concept track simply titled The Trial with Meth playing the judge. Candyman is the song that reminds parents why they check their kids' Halloween candy or outright steal it if they're dope fiends. Scram Jones redeems his wrongs from the Emerald City era with his precisely layered sampling on Rap Kingpin, while breakbeats, metaphysics, and beatbox go hard, serving as our receipts for the mixtape vibe throughout. It's been quite a while since we've heard Tony Starks as invigorated as he is here, but with the title being Supreme Clientele 2, it just feels like we've been bamboozled again. Album-defining tracks that immediately scream classic that we hear ourselves running back year after year are sadly MIA. Is it a solid offering from a veteran MC with over 3 decades on the mic? Absolutely. But as with most sequels, it can never hold the weight of the original. Number 3, Fishscale. Finally returning to form more than halfway into the new millennium, Ghostface Killah's focus was properly recentered on Fishscale. Not only was it the best Wu-Tang album in the bow during the year, but it was also one of the top hip-hop releases overall during said period. Yet the Big Def Jam machine couldn't even push 500,000 units out the door. Blame it on the man who guessed selling CDs was like selling kilos of that white powder. Simply releasing the Pete Rock Helm to Be Easy as a street single and pairing him up with label-mate Neo for Back Like That as a crossover joint obviously didn't make the intended effect. Perhaps the most entertaining part on said hip-hop and R&B duet comes before the song truly starts, where Stark says,
And let me get that rock on your finger. Oh, stuck? Then I'll take the whole finger then, man.
A sense of humor will take you far, but we believe the sincerity when he said that was even more potent. 9 Milli Bros bands the majority of the clan together and would have been an excellent dart to shoot out to the masses. Mama featuring Megan Rochelle and Jellyfish with Capadonna, Sean Wiggs, and Trife could have also shaken up radio. The way in which the stories, freestyles, and skits are welded together across the album lend a smoothly cohesive outing. For instance, no matter how Bad Mouth Kid skit flows right into the classic soul sounds of Whip You With a Strap, Chef's Kiss. In the era we grew up in, any kid talking to adults the way that little bastard did would have easily earned him consecutive beatings from their parents and neighbors alike. Essentially the modern day rap version of Heatwave's Beat Your Booty If You Ain't Been Doing Your Duty. If you know, you know. An amped up Killah emerges on the Champ, which sounds like it was omitted from Supreme Clientele, while his creative juices are completely spilled out on the MF Doom produced Underwater, where he somehow came across the ocean's worst driver SpongeBob in a Bentley coupe. However he arrived, we bet the house that he didn't use a Titan-like submersible controlled with the Mad Catz gamepad to get down there. But in all seriousness, Fishscale stands the test of time with very few bones to pick from its 24-track offering. Number 2, Ironman. Outside of doing the 90s requisite movie soundtrack offerings, namely Woo-Wear, The Garment Renaissance for High School High, Motherless Child for Sunset Park, and Winter Wars for Don't Be a Menace to South Central, 1996 was rather low-key as far as the Woo was concerned. The latter 2 joints are also included on Ironman, which was tasked with holding down the rest of the year upon its late October arrival, doing so quite graciously we might add. Like Snoop's inaugural debut in '93, the pinnacle of sales and chart positions established here would never be reached again. But hey, with over 1 million units off the shelves, snagging the number 1 spot upon the hip hop and R&B chart, and debuting at its peak position of number 2 on the Billboard 200 was par for the course, considering the crew could do no wrong at the time. Ray returns Ghost favor from last year by featuring on 90% of the album and its cover, while also stitching in Capadonna front and center across a total of 5 tracks. And with Bobby Steele steering this ship, like all prior chapters in the Wu-Tang saga, the formula continued to flood listeners' hearts and ears like the RZA's basement. The crew's chemistry is best displayed on Daytona 500, Iron Maiden, and Fish. Mary J. Blige continues to show love for the Wu, motivating Pretty Tony to rustle up emotional childhood recollections on the hood classic All That I Got Is You. Original pressings of the album are highly coveted, as Marvel, featuring RZA on mic, was exclusive to the CD at the time, and the Soul Controller with the Force MDs has been axed from subsequent releases due to uncleared samples. YouTube's going to be your only way to check out the latter, but the former is available on streaming services now. Depending on which iteration of Ghost you enjoyed most will determine if Ironman remains his best work to date, or the one you've all been waiting for us to get to, and that is number 1, Supreme Clientele. Since there was no extinction level event on 12/31/1999 at 11:59 p.m. as Mr. Busta Rhymes had been clamoring about during the second half of the 90s, year 2000 commenced and life carried on. Meanwhile, hip-hop heads were blessed with a nearly perfect album from the Mask Avenger less than 60 days in, daring anyone to beat it. No other Wu solos would bow during the year, and the group's third album that dropped at the tail end of Y2K, go peep our video about the Wu-Tang catalog for our thoughts on that one. Gotta admit though, the computers responsible for printing out the track list for this album was glitchy as hell, because trying to figure out the song titles from the back of that CD, forget about it. Storytime is put to bed for the majority of this set, instead leaning heavy into his Kunta Fly shit, spewing words, rhymes, and patterns that cut you high, mid, and low with a swag that only D. Coles possesses. Never mind the fact that most of it's gonna go right over your dome. The way RZA flipped an obscure Funky Penguin into the grain hit us with Off Kilter, loud and abrasive backward scratches, on Stroke of Death, and converted Baby Huey's Hard Times into Buck 50 alongside Kappa, Meth, and Red are further examples of why his productions were so coveted. A la Mathematics' style closely mimics the RZA sound on Wu Banga 101 that reunites the Ironman cover trio plus Jizza and Ireef, and Mighty Healthy, where he clearly and stylishly offends a few particular groups of people undoubtedly. We Made It is the victory lap that its title suggests, whereas Child's Play finds Denny reminiscing on his adolescent days as a horny teen, experiencing bouts of puppy love over an old-timey piano loop. And how can we forget Clyde Smith's rebuttal to up-and-coming Queen's thug Curtis Jackson's How to Rob to sign off the album. As for the singles, Shay Shay La Ghost and Apollo Kids with Ray,
hated it.
Clientele is proof that his fan base was already solid and people did actually listen to full albums, because those two tracks are not what we'd call album sellers by any stretch of the imagination. However, the overall legacy of this album, paired with his other colorful bodies of work, will ensure that Ghostface's name will forever be associated as one of the best and most consistent to ever rock the chrome mic. And of course, if you've seen our latest Wu-Tang Raise Me merch, then you know this album made the cut. All you gotta do is click the link in the description to get your hoodie or tee today. And that's gonna be it for us at CT, another dope list in the chambers. We invite all of your feedback down in the comments, and remember, if y'all want that Ghostface mixtape ranking, let us hear it loud and clear. It's your man CJ for CT, repping for the culture, and until we drop our latest, greatest list, check out these clips right here and right there. Peace.